Hello viewers, well, the E3 show is almost upon us. The show doors will be opening next week and we'll be getting a look at lots of new games. And of course, many of those will be announced at the conferences this weekend, arguably the highlight of the entire E3 calendar and a highlight of the year in terms of video games. And we're going to discuss some of the potential new racing games that could be at the show this week. So I'm joined today by Kevin.
Howdy.
And we're going to be discussing some of what we expect to be at the show. This year, there hasn't been much coming through in terms of information, but we're just going to kind of cycle through and see what could be there. And we're going to kick off with WRC 8. WRC 8, of course, we showed on the channel a couple of months ago. We showed our first preview. Looking great, really impressive. They've had a year out to make the game as good as it can possibly be. And it's looking stunning at the moment. Certainly a lot in there. At E3 this week, we're looking to see how the game has evolved and also potentially some of the one-player mode and some of the exciting career mode options that could be in there as well. Certainly sounds like they've put a lot of work into it. There could be a lot to look forward to. Kevin, what are your thoughts on WRC at E3?
Yeah, I mean, they've taken like a 2-year development cycle, haven't they, since the last game. I mean, traditionally they come out with a rally game every year from 2015 onwards. So it's taken 2 years off now, and it really does show, doesn't it? Visually, it looks like it's really come on in leaps and bounds. They've got the dynamic weather, which is really going to change things up in terms of grip levels and visibility. So there's all these sort of changing elements. They have changing grip levels on different surface types as well throughout the rally stages. Of course, they've got over 100 special stages as well. So it's a massive, massive game with all this weather, all these different road condition changes and such. So it's really going to offer players, a real sort of authentic experience. It's going to hopefully make you feel like a rally driver traveling across the globe, taking part in all these wonderful rallies. So very exciting on that front. Of course, I guess one of the main draws, apart from all the visuals and the weather and such, is the revamped career mode. So, as if all those other elements weren't enough, we have a career mode that has a massive overhaul this year. So very much looking forward to that, because previous titles have pretty much been copy and paste jobs. Understandably, because you only have 1 year cycle to bring out a game every year, that you have to develop certain elements. There's obviously some elements that you would like to develop, but sort of get left on the cutting room floor because there's only so much time and money to invest into these products every year. But they've gone now with a revamped career mode with this 2 year development cycle. So very much looking forward to what they've added to it to really make you feel like a real driver, and any sort of discussing like team elements as well. You've got to manage certain elements in your team. We've seen a bit of that with Milestones WRC 2 from years ago, and I guess we're getting more of that and perhaps more on top with WRC 8. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it's all coming together, how it's progressed from the early build that we've seen, because it did look fantastic. And of course, where it is now is going to be interesting to see. But really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very, very solid game. It's going to be, the best game I'm sure that Killerton have released to date. I've got very high hopes for this game, and like I say, I'm just very looking forward to seeing how it's developed and what sort of elements they have in the career mode.
Yeah, career mode, certainly something we're looking forward to. WRC 8, obviously it's a game we followed, and it's one we're going to be getting some footage of from the show floor build. So certainly we'll have some great footage coming to the channel in the next few days on WRC 8. Do let us know what you'd like to see. And also do let us know in the comments as well. What are you looking forward to at E3? What are you most excited about seeing? And what's your feelings based on what we've discussed here on this podcast? Of course, next on the show floor is going to be a new version of Grid, a new update on Grid. Because we saw the announcement a couple of weeks ago. We're looking forward to seeing what new build, what new cars and tracks are going to be showing on that at the show. So we'll see something like that. Anything that's shown from that, possibly a trailer, possibly a new build, some video content, you'll see that appearing on the channel. And also from Codemasters, likelihood is we'll be seeing Grid Autosport on the Switch there. It's quite curious, Kevin, how we've ended up with sort of new Grid and old Grid, and they're sort of releasing at the same time. Sort of brand confusion, if you like.
Yeah, and we said this about the new Grid. There was brand confusion. We had the Race Driver Grid game from 2008, I believe it was, and now we've got the new Grid game. But on top of that, like you say, you've got the Grid Autosport, which could be confused with the new Grid game, which itself is confusing. So you've got this sort of triple whammy going on now with Grid titles. So yeah, it is getting a bit confusing. So Codemasters really have to make sure they differentiate what is what to the consumer,
Yes.
So just to avoid the confusion there. But it's good to see Grid Autosport on the handheld platform, isn't it? It's just another serious racing game that's getting on there, which they need more of to really sort of cement the Switch as a sort of a platform that does have these more serious titles aside from the arcade races, which it has an abundance of. We're seeing more and more racing games being ported to the Switch in recent months and years. So it certainly is. There's a lot of choice there now with racing games. It's just nice to see some more serious games added to that mix to really give players a good sort of overall sort of sample of the racing genre goodness. So it's good to see that. But yeah, new Grid. They showed the sort of old track. They said it was a new game. We wasn't sure if it was a remaster or reimagining. There's a bit of confusion as to what Grid actually is. They've revealed a few more disciplines since the initial reveal and our team chat as well. So it seems like they don't have quite as many disciplines as the original Race Driver Grid from 2008. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't think there's as many tracks as well. So it's a strange one, isn't it? It almost feels like it's a sample of a Grid title that perhaps they'll develop further in the future should enough players buy the game. I guess they're sort of testing the water in a sense that they're just going to put it out there. If enough players buy it, then perhaps they can invest heavily in the future Grid titles. So hopefully this Grid title does well, but it needs to be a fairly beefy package to entice players. But like we said before, nostalgia will be a big element, I think, in buying this game because it does have some of the old tracks in there. So, it has that going for it. But we want to see something new, don't we, at E3 this year? We want to see some new disciplines and new tracks and something that's really going to give us that wow factor, which perhaps the original revealing maybe lacks in certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot they've got to do. I mean, I think one of the core areas of Codemasters, they're getting bad feedback from the community right now. When I look at the comments, I see people, they're unhappy about the amount of DLC. They're feeling that that they're essentially removing part of the game rather than it complementing the game. They're removing core aspects of the game to put to a DLC pack, so essentially forcing you to buy the DLC. So I think Codemasters really need to look at their rep right now and think, what do we want Grid to be? Do we want Grid to be the best game it can possibly be? In that case, it needs to have the best package it can possibly have. It needs plenty of tracks, plenty of cars. The problem is when you have lots of disciplines, you've got to make sure there's enough content for all of those disciplines.
Yes.
And I remember complaining about games like Gran Turismo years ago and saying Gran Turismo 3 had Le Mans cars. It only had like 3 tracks that suited Le Mans cars in the game.
It was even worse with GT5. GT5 secured many different licenses, including NASCAR, and it largely wasted those because there was very little races and championships around that license. So they've purchased all these expensive licenses, but really never made good use of them. It was terribly frustrating. GT5 to me, as many hours as I put into it, and I put in so many, it was unbelievable. I was so disappointed with it. They didn't sort of really. It was underwhelming in terms of putting those licenses to use. So yeah, I know what you're saying with this Grid. I had this little fear there that perhaps it will be almost like a 3/4 of a Grid title. It doesn't quite have that amount of content. But like I say, it's probably they're just putting it out there, I guess, to see what the community engagement is. How interested are people in the Grid title? I guess perhaps in some similar ways with the Micro Machines title a few years back, perhaps something similar. They put the title out there after many years of not seeing a Micro Machines game, and just to see what people were interested in. I get sort of similar vibe with Grid as well. So hopefully it will do well. As I say, hopefully it will be big enough for people to get in, stuck into, and obviously the DLC plan will hopefully, like you say, not take out so much core content and actually give additional on top of the base game. But I guess it's all in Codemasters' hands now, isn't it, to really sort of...
Yeah, they've got to package it right. So look forward to seeing what they come out with on Grid and Grid Autosport at the show. Certainly, if we'll get any footage if and when we can on those. One of the other exciting games expected to be shown at the show is Euro Truck Racing. Now, Euro Truck Racing came out of nowhere a few weeks ago. It was a big surprise, really, to see the return. I really enjoyed the truck racing game that was on the PS2 years ago, which I believe ran at 60 frames per second. We're talking like 15 years ago. Yeah, frame rate. And I remember loving a bit of 60 frames back then as well.
Yeah.
And Well, basically, recently I got a hands on the new Euro Truck Racing game, and I can say that I've very much enjoyed it so far. The physics feel great. It's got some good audio effects to it. We've got a full preview coming up on the channel that may be up already by the time this video comes up, or it may not be, in which case you're seeing some exclusive content now from the upcoming video. Suffice to say, it's been a lot of fun so far. I've enjoyed it. Good racing action. What we really need to wait and see in the final version is going to be the terms of the career and online modes, and that's something that we probably won't be able to look at until nearer to launch. But either way, development's looking very good. Challenging to drive these trucks,
Yes.
a lot of power, the turbo comes in, a lot of wheel spin, very impressive things to behold in terms of how they work and how tricky the game is to drive quickly. It's easy to drive, but it's hard to drive fast, and I think that's going to be quite interesting to see how the top players pick it up and how they're using the gearing and how they're using the turbo lag and getting the most out of the vehicle. And also, you'll see in the video, the first look is the water gauge, just how critical that is for maintaining your brakes at the correct temperature, and how to use it strategically as well. So I think that's going to be very interesting. You've seen a little bit of truck racing. It's come to consoles as well. What are you expecting we'll see at the show, Kevin?
It's been so many years, hasn't it, since we've seen a console truck racer, so it's one of those games that's it's long overdue, isn't it? A sort of simulation of truck racing. I mean, there are elements of truck racing in certain PC racing sims, of course, but to have a dedicated game on the consoles is very refreshing, and it's something new for players. I mean, there's many racing game addicts out there that probably have never played a truck racing game, so it's something new for a lot of people, so hopefully it can do well on that front. But there's a lot going on with trucks, it's not just a case of getting around turns and understeering everywhere and just being a bit dull. These trucks are lively. They have over 1,000 horsepower, 5-ton monsters, so they're going to take a lot of taming. Like you say, there's a lot of strategy with the water cooling on top, gearing. You make sure you've got to be in the right gear, because with trucks, gearing is absolutely essential. It's more so than regular vehicles, because there's certain gears that are only good for getting off the line, and there's the higher gears that you need to utilize well in order not to be sort of left in the dust. So there's plenty of strategy going on, lots going on if you're using a racing wheel as well. So it's certainly exciting in that point of view. But yeah, it's good to see a game like this back on the console market, especially because it's been far too long, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been a lot of fun to play. I found it quite an exciting game, and it's got various strategies to it. And like you say, we just have to wait and see how it comes together. But enjoying that, expect to see more of it on the show floor. One thing we're not expecting to see any of is Need for Speed. Now, Need for Speed has been a brand that's been through many changes over the years, and certainly it would really depend on your age as to when you came into the world of Need for Speed, as to how much what you think a Need for Speed game actually is. It's a really sort of messed up brand these days. Nobody knows what it is, and I think that for several years now, EA have been trying to sort of re-envision what Need for Speed is, what it should be. I wonder sometimes if they're getting the right advice. I wonder sometimes if they really know what they are doing at all, because there's been a few. It's not really gone well for them, but they have a massive brand there, massive branding machine. And whenever Need for Speed comes out, no matter how bad it is, it still manages to sell. The brand is that big. It's bigger than the game. So Need for Speed not going to be at E3 this year, yet a new Need for Speed game is coming, and we know nothing about it. I mean, it might be shown at Gamescom later this year. And in many respects, Gamescom has become bigger than E3 itself. I think it's going to be interesting to see, Kevin, where they go with Need for Speed. But Need for Speed, obviously, not at E3 this year, and we'll wait and see what else EA are going to be showing. Also at E3 this year, we don't know if it will or it won't be what's going to happen with the Forza brand this year. Ordinarily, we would expect Forza Motorsport 8 to be revealed at the show, but there's a lot of rumours this year. There's rumours that we're in a transitional period. There's rumours that there could be a new Forza 4 remake, a new Forza game that encompasses all of the Forza history, that there could be a new Forza service like GT Sport, or it could just be Forza Motorsport 8 or something else to fill us over to the new consoles come in. So Forza Motorsport, we'll wait and see. Knowing Microsoft, it will probably just be Forza Motorsport 8 because everything else seems like drama to me, and they do like to have their numbers. They've got it all corporately set up. Dan will come up on stage. There'll be a bit of smoke, a bit of lights, and there'll be a new car behind him that's never been in the game before, and he'll be saying, "We're back, and we've got the brand new whatever behind me, and it's going to be in Forza Motorsport 8."
I mean,
watch a demo of that car really loud driving around a new circuit.
Is there a chance that it may not happen at all? Like we won't get anything from Forza this year?
There is a chance, but I don't know. I think the way the brand is set up is it needs something. So there will be a Forza announcement of some kind.
Bearing in mind Sony won't be there, I guess, you know, Microsoft will really need to capitalize on that. So Forza would make sense, but we're hearing so many different rumors that we just don't know what to expect. We don't know what it's going to be, what sort of format it will take. I mean, it could literally be anything, couldn't it, at this point?
Yeah, I think that we'll just have to wait and see. It's very much a case.
Could it even be like a reboot of the series? Because 8 doesn't really roll off the tongue, doesn't it? When you get to certain numbers like 7, 6, you know, it gets a bit long in the tooth, doesn't it? You have to reset eventually.
It could end up going by a year, or but I think you have to look at why Forza's reaching this issue. Well, there's a lot of issues that people want fixed in Forza Motorsport 7.
Yeah.
Forza Motorsport 7 probably maximizes the hardware is in the Xbox One as much as it can. They have nowhere else to go in that sense. The next thing is the growth of esports. Esports has become bigger and bigger. Something I've been critical about Forza is I've not liked the handling since Forza 4. They went to this new type of handling in Forza Motorsport 5, which is you turn off traction control and the cars are just all over the place. They just don't have a feeling of, they don't feel real in any way. They feel like toy cars. And I've spoken to racing drivers and we've sat together and we've tested out Forza games and with a wheel and said, well, you can play it with a wheel, but the real car handles nothing like that at all. Just nothing. It's nowhere near a real car. So how can we have the Forza Racing Championship with toy cars that don't handle like that? And it doesn't connect. So I think if they want real motorsport brands getting involved, they want the Audi Cup, then they're going to have to get a car that handles like an Audi in a realistic way. And ideally, then you put those guys into real cars afterwards with the real simulators. Because Forza's so far from that, they've got this issue now where they need to really improve on the physics side of things and bring it forward. It's great with the controller. It's great for the mass market they've got. But the mass market is very different to the esports market.
Yes.
That's why Forza may even bring in Forza esports, you know, Forza World esports.
I mean, undoubtedly they have to introduce something to compete with their rivals GT Sport. You know, they're not just going to sit down and do nothing. They're going to come back strong. They're going to have something here that really sort of puts it to Gran Turismo. Sorry.
Yeah.
So in some, you know, they're lagging behind in certain areas, like you say, with the physics and esports in general. But no doubt they'll come back strong with something that's really going to sort of surprise people. But they're definitely going to come back with some sort of GT Sport rival, perhaps an additional mode or an additional game, some sort of expansion, or perhaps just something bolted onto the Forza Motorsport 8 package. But there's definitely going to be something in the works. They have talked about a motorsport focus, more authentic focus for a future Forza title. So there's definitely something in the works there, but who knows what we're going to see. It's exciting though, because we don't know what's coming. You see, we have a rough idea, but we're still not 100% sure. So we could get nothing at this E3, or we could get everything. We just don't know what we're going to see. So there is that
idea. To say how Microsoft normally work is there'll be a demo at E3.
Yes.
They'll do a little behind closed doors thing that no one's allowed to show you, which is quite pointless. And then they'll show you a demo at Gamescom, which will be the very same demo.
Please no.
And likely that's when we'll get a hands-on.
You mentioned before Gamescom is becoming more and more the primary event.
Yeah.
So, you know, more and more we're seeing new demos for Gamescom as opposed to the rehashed E3 stuff that we've had for many, many years. So, you know, hopefully Gamescom will become bigger and bigger, and obviously it's got the potential need for speed reveal as well. That's going to go in its favour. So
I mean, so if you go back, you know, 20 odd years ago, we used to have the ECTS show in the UK, and we had that in March and September, and the September show was very big because back then games were releasing in sort of September, October, November, December. And so September was the perfect time for a trade show because most of the games would be near complete that were shown at the show. They didn't need to make demos as such. Whereas because E3 was in, June time, May, June, whenever, it was an awkward time of year where the game was nowhere near complete. So they had to make a separate demo, finish that, and that was pretty expensive to show to people on the show floor. The next problem with E3 is that it was primarily designed as a trade show.
Yeah.
And in recent years, they've opened tickets to the general public, very expensive tickets. But when I went to the show a couple of years ago, there were games I wanted to cover and I couldn't cover them because there were just too many people there. And I remember I was standing with a couple of YouTubers and we said, well, we could probably generate between us 2 million views on that game. But you know what? There's 10 guys in the queue. They're not going to get off the game. So they get that instead. So instead of having 2 million views, they got 10 guys playing it and walking away again. And that's where you're saying it's not working because those guys have probably paid $200,000 for that stand, $500,000, $1 million. It's big money that they're paying on these stands. And if they're not getting out of it in terms of business afterwards, then the show isn't working for them. Mm-hmm. Gamescom is different. Gamescom has an actual show floor for the general public, a lot more space, but also it has a business area. So you can deal with everybody in the right way, in the right places. E3 doesn't even have a media day. It was just open to the general public. And since it was open to the general public as well, security has become a lot more overzealous at E3 now, a lot more moody. And you just can't get on with your job. So I think Sony aren't there this year. If EA aren't showing Need for Speed, I think you could see a few more companies targeting Gamescom as the bigger show later in the year.
Yep.
And like you say, it's also down to cost of stands. They're charging enormous prices for the stands, but by making it a consumer event, they've not reduced the prices for those buying the stands, which they probably could have passed on because they're making income from elsewhere. So E3 is getting a bit greedy. I think that's one of the issues there. But yeah, so no sign of Need for Speed at the show, no Sony, and new Forza. What will it be? We'll have to wait and see. So very exciting times. One of the things that probably will be there is Google Stadia or Stadia, if you're a bit posh. And it's going to be interesting to see what we can expect from the Google Stadia system, because I'll be posh, is because
yes.
it's not new. Okay, we had On Live a few years ago.
Good few years ago now.
Good few years ago now.
Yeah.
I say good few years. Yeah, good few years ago now. Goodness, 2011 really. And it was good for stuff like strategy games. And various games that use PC performance but didn't require high speed movement in that way. But it wasn't great for racing games because of the speed at which everything happens.
Yeah.
One of the issues is when they demo these things at trade shows, they often have amazing internet connections, business internet. It's got like 200 meg download or something. Not like being in your home, 10 meg download and 4 people using a Wi-Fi. It's the jury is out. It will get massive amounts of support.
Yes.
But in terms of racing games, we saw the announcement today of Grid coming to the Google system. It's going to be interesting to see how well that works.
Yes.
I mean, basically, it's going to be the PC version of Grid running at maximum settings on your system, and potentially that will look very nice. But what are your thoughts on the Google Stadia, Kevin?
Yeah, I guess it's like we say. Will it work in the real world with people that are sharing internet connections, wireless connections, and such? Like you say, it's all well and good showing off with a massive connection at an event, but you don't get the true showcasing of the technology in the real world environment. So I don't know. I'm not too excited about this, to be honest, because I'm much more excited about the new generation of consoles. I feel that's where the hardcore gamers will go to. With this, I just feel that it's what it can do is it can put the gaming into more people's hands and such. You can introduce games to new people. It has that accessibility where you can bring it anywhere you wish. So in terms of that, it's fantastic. But I feel for hardcore gamers, playing on that pad, it's. I don't think there's any controller, any keyboard or mouse support for shooting games. Racing wheel support is a no-no for racing games. So think the real hardcore gamers will probably still steer clear of Stadia for now. And I mean, it has potential, but I just feel that it's probably too early for all this. We've discussed this before as well. We just feel that they haven't got the infrastructure in place to really sort of bring this to the hardcore gamers, I guess. But for what it is, you know, it could be interesting to see how it does for the more casual gamer and new gamers coming on board. So in that sense, it can only be a good thing to get more people into gaming. But as in terms of a replacement for a console, I just feel it comes up too short at the moment. And of course, looking at the games list, there's nothing exclusive, is there, so far? The games list is quite small so far, but of course there'll be reveals during E3. It'd be interesting to see what they can come up with in terms of exclusive content, but so far, like you say, the jury's out, isn't it, right now?
Yeah, I mean, no exclusive content on there. So they're going to be working with other publishers. That's something, no doubt, they're going to be developing. I think what you've got to look at is that it's going to bring gaming to a lot of people that don't have consoles. People in different countries around the world, perhaps they don't have a console, they don't have facility to have a console, they don't have a big TV they can use, so they can use it on their mobile phone. As long as they have internet, obviously they need internet to do it, because the charges otherwise on data would be a bit high. But you know, it means if you've got a mobile phone, you've got a control pad, you can go anywhere, you can play your games wherever you want to. And I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to bring gaming to a lot more people. So in that way, this is great news for games companies. It's great news for everyone involved in terms of that side of the business and developing the online side. It's going to push forward the infrastructure development, because it will highlight what countries need it more than others and move that forward.
Yes.
But does this mean the end of consoles as we know it? No, I don't think it does. I think we're nowhere near the end of consoles at the moment. We've got the PS5 coming in. I think there'll be an assessment in 10 years' time if there's a PS6. Personally, I still feel there will be a PS6. You know, this idea, as I say, isn't new. We were talking about this idea 15 years ago, even longer, and saying it's going to be the future. But, you know, we were expecting that infrastructure would improve quicker than it has, and it hasn't, and that's holding things back. But it's not a new idea. It really is just down to people all over the country having the opportunity to use these systems at their maximum, and at the moment a lot of people don't. So affordable, cheap internet for all needs to come before we can actually move forward.
I mean, we talk about 10 megabyte connection. That would only secure sort of 720p gaming. So I'd recommend speeds of 30 megabytes per second to play sort of 4K 60. So you know, a lot of people don't have that. I mean, a lot of people do have that, but a lot of people don't. So it's sort of I don't know. I guess a lot of people could be buying this with the expectation that they're going to get a certain standard, and perhaps their internet connection won't be up to that standard. So they could be left underwhelmed in that sense. So I think they've really got to make it clear that you need a certain connection to achieve something on par with, say, the current or next generation consoles. Yeah,
I think that it's going to be a learning process. I expect bugs at launch, put it that way. So Google Stadia, I think it's a good idea. It's not new, but they're a big brand. They can certainly pull it off over time. They'll be dedicated to it. They're clearly getting the software support. They've got enough money to pay influencers all over the world to tell you it's the best thing since sliced bread. Influencers will be telling you it's brilliant, even if they don't even use it themselves, because most of those influencers probably have £10,000 PCs and don't really care anyway. So that's Google Stadia. We'll be on the show floor, and we'll have a chat about that when we've seen a bit more of it, no doubt. There'll be lots of discussion to come. Truck Driver will also be on the show floor, we're expecting. We're expecting. At the moment, Truck Driver has received a lukewarm reception from gamers. I think they're concerned it won't have the detail of the sort of Euro truck driving games we've seen on the PC. We'll have to wait and see how that moves forward and what there is there. Maybe there'll be a new trailer. Also, Pacer is expected to be shown at the show. If you haven't seen Pacer, I played it a while ago at the EGX Res show. Very much like Wipeout. It's a futuristic racing game, Wipeout style. It oozes Wipeout style visual look. But certainly there's still work to be done on the handling. That air cushioning feeling just isn't there yet. It's quite rigid to play. It'll be interesting to see handling wise what they come up with. And of course, it is the new name for Formula Fusion, which of course we covered a couple of years ago. I played a fair bit of that as well. It should be enjoyable, coming to consoles as well, 60 frames per second. And we're going to see if we can get any footage of that on the show floor. But if not, preview at a later point in the year, but we're expecting that to be there. So
yeah, it's been a while, isn't it, in the works? I mean, this sort of came to our attention many years ago, and there was a lot of futuristic races floating about at the time, wasn't there? Whereas not so much now. It's sort of gone quiet in terms of that now. So maybe it is a good time to release, so you're not quite sort of bashing shoulders with other games on a very similar
better time. Much better time. I mean, Redout came out a couple of years ago, which was a great game, but without the marketing muscle, it doesn't matter how good the game was. It was very difficult getting people interested in Redout. You know, I love Redout, but if I do a Redout stream, hardly anyone watches. It's just a real shame, you know. So you're sort of forced into doing the same games. But either way, we'll keep an eye on Pacer, see how it develops. Another game that we're looking forward to at the show is Overpass, which was announced a few weeks ago. Something that sort of under the radar in a way in terms of announcements. Overpass is a game where you sort of, it's a mountain climbing game. Hill climb, mountain climb. I say hill climb. Hill climb is when you race up a hill with a sports car up a road. Mountain climbing is very much, there's no road. You're just attacking the mountain, you're attacking the rock face itself, and you're deciding how best to get up there. It does look like potentially it could be a lot of fun, certainly a lot of work going into the physics. It's almost like, I guess, a high-speed version of Mud Runner.
Yes.
In that sense, Spin Tires, sort of a high-speed version of it. Exactly.
You're going up against the raw environment with no aids of any kind. Like you just sort of, like you say, you're going up the side of the mountains and that, and you've got various obstacles. Actually, there are some man-made obstacles as well. There's some wooden bridges and things like that thrown in as well, just for some extra flavour. But yeah, it's something different, isn't it? It seems like a very, like you say, a very physics-based game. And as long as the physics are enjoyable, you know, it should be something. It should be a pretty fun game, shouldn't it? Because it's got some interesting vehicles. You've got buggies and quads, so you've got a nice range there of stuff. I don't think the trailer really showcased the game to its fullest. You didn't see much, did you? It was very teasery. It showed a few little elements, but it wasn't anything that really sort of grips you. But it certainly has potential. You've got your two-wheel and your four-wheel drive vehicles as well, different differential settings to consider. So there is a bit of sort of strategy in there as well. And there is a career mode as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that comes together. But it's certainly one that we're looking out for, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I've heard really good things behind the scenes on this game, and it's nice to see something unique, something new. People often complaining there's nothing unique, there's nothing new. Well, here you go, something unique, something new design ideas. Let's see how it comes through, and let's support it if it's good. Overpass, I'm looking forward to it, actually. Yeah. I hope it does bring together some new ideas and it actually works. You know, we saw a couple of years ago, last year, Onrush had new ideas and didn't work. Perhaps Overpass will, and certainly what I've seen so far, it looks very interesting. So coverage, we'll see if we can get some show floor demo build coverage of Overpass. Again, one that's exciting, it's new, and it's going to be shown for the first time running to the public and us as well at E3. That moves us nicely onto Mud Runner 2, the new name for Spin Tires on console. Mud Runner 2, not much information on this one, Kevin. It's a game that we heard about a while ago. I think we've got one article on the site about it. It is something we're looking forward to seeing at E3. Anything that caught your eye on Mud Runner 2?
Well, like you say, we don't know much about it. It was announced so early, wasn't it? Because you had Mud Runner DLCs after the Mud Runner 2 announcement. So it was very unusual in that sense. It was almost a bit like Project Cars 2 when they announced that. It was just too early, wasn't it? So similar sort of vibes here with number 2. So we know very little. I mean, it'll be more of the same, I guess, with fresh environments. And much like Overpass, you know, you're very much up against nature and the various sort of hazardous terrain and puddles and you know, big sloshes of mud and all that good stuff. But it's a very enjoyable game in the sense that you sort of you're having to tackle, you know, whatever the game can throw at you, and it does sort of give you some interesting dilemmas, and you know, you can choose which path to take, and it's just one of those fun physics-based games that works so well. You know, particularly in a PC environment where you have many simulation games. But again, you know, it's good to see this on the console market, which you don't really see. You don't see very many sort of simulation games outside of racing sims, do you? On the console especially. So games like Farming Simulator we've seen more recently. I think 2013 was the first Farming Simulator game for consoles. And this is sort of continuing that recent trend. So yeah, it's another game that's welcome for the console market, but we know nothing about it, unfortunately.
No, I think certainly one to keep an eye out for. The footage you'll be looking at from the recent DLC trailer, so we'll have been repeating that on the screen. So that's not Mud Runner 2, but we hope to see some Mud Runner 2 content. Another game we haven't seen anything of yet, we've been talking about, feels like forever, is GTR 3. GTR 3, we've been talking about it for a long time, Kevin, but apart from a few screenshots that were released last year, I think, there's really been nothing on it. I saw there was developers talking about it at a conference earlier this year, but maybe E3 we'll finally get to see some of the game in action. So GTR 3 could be on the show floor. Also on the show floor could be Monster Jam Steel Titans, which is from THQ Nordic. So that's likely to be in their section, along with possibly a console version of Wreckfest. It's almost become vaporware on the console.
It's almost like, was it Duke Nukem Forever? It's like it's just not coming, is it? But it will be here eventually. But no, I guess I don't know. It's another one of those physics-based games that is so hard to run, I guess, on the consoles, current gen consoles at least, because there's so much going on. There's cars crumpling. There's all this debris flying off the cars. There's so much rendering power needed to run that at sufficient quality to represent more like the PC version. So who knows? We may see that ported to the next gen consoles in a more truer vision of the game in line with the PC version. I don't believe that the PS4 and Xbox One are quite up to doing something like, because we haven't seen damage on that level on a console before. So I can imagine it's going to be very, very hard and probably impossible to run it anywhere near sort of PC-like detail.
30 frames per second.
Yeah.
And it will lose a lot of polish from the PC version.
Yeah.
Go down the frame rate text.
You really need 60 frames with a game like this because it's surprisingly sim-like, this game. It's not... in some ways it's a spiritual successor to Destruction Derby, but it's very much sim-based, isn't it? It's very much has its roots in simulation. So there's a lot of weight to the cars. Surprisingly so, when I first played the game, I thought this would be more of an arcade affair, and it just wasn't. So it sort of really adds so much more layers in terms of authenticity and obviously calculations. You've got to run all these calculations, and it's incredibly hungry on processing power. So I would like to see, if they can't, I'd like to see a release on the PS4 and Xbox One, but I'd also like to see a next gen release with more detail as well to complement the original.
I think by then, bear in mind it's 7 years since we started covering this game.
Really, 7 years.
We ran our first video preview. We need Wreckfest 2 on the new consoles. No converting a 7-year-old game to a new console. They need Wreckfest 2. They need to kick it out the door now. It feels like an old game to me already. It's taken forever to finish, so certainly they need to work on that. But either way, Wreckfest at E3. Another game that's going to be there, probably complete form, is going to be Crash Team Racing.
Yes.
Team Racing Nitro Fueled, which was a lot of fun recently. Again, enjoyable go-kart action. It's been upgraded in a thoughtful way. It feels just like the original game. And I got a lot of criticism because I wasn't boosting enough in my video. But there was still some special tactics I didn't know. But suffice to say, once I've got the game at home, if we get a copy of the game, you never know, then we'll play it a bit more. But that will likely be on the show floor in a complete form, and possibly it's coming to Switch as well. So you might see that version. Also, F1 2019 will probably show more of the one-player game. I think this is going to be sort of the final build you're going to see revealed at the show. New elements on that as well. I don't think we'll have any more video clips from the show on Formula One. Likely there could be a trailer, but we'll look. The game's out in just a few weeks' time. 20 days from now. So we'll probably get a review build very soon, and we'll have at least some preview content coming up, and then a look through the options and going through that. What's the word I'm thinking of? Overview. And a look through the options for Formula One 2019, which, looking at it recently, graphics are stunning. The introduction of GP2, the improvements to physics, but also they're working a lot on the one-player mode as well, and they've added various things like leagues in the game online and various online elements, and making it look better in terms of replays for esports, and lots of little tweaks, and hopefully improvement on a few of those bugs that have been lingering as well. They've certainly worked hard on F1. No doubt there'll still be a massive day one patch on that, just like there is on everything else. So that's about it for E3, Kevin. I think we've been through all the core racing titles that are going to be there. Anything that you're most excited about?
Just the unknown, really, because usually there's an awful lot of leaks around this time. And I just feel that there hasn't been as many leaks this year as there have been previous years. So, and I don't know, I have that excitement that I didn't have perhaps last year, because I really don't know too much about what we're going to see. Even with racing games like Forza, we just don't know what we're going to see. If we're going to see anything at all, are we going to see Forza 8? Are we going to see a special Forza that has more authenticity? I mean, we just don't know what we're going to see. There's so many new titles. You've got truck racing titles as well, and it seems like it could be anything turn up, couldn't there? Because we've seen acquisition of certain racing licenses in recent years, so like THQ Nordic and things like that. It'd be interesting to see what they've got in the pipeline, perhaps for the future. But it really could be anything, couldn't it? I'm hoping that there's going to be a game that we know absolutely nothing about, and that's going to surprise us. But I say this most years, and most years we don't actually get that holy grail. But I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I'm sort of in a strange. I think we're in a strange place this year.
Yeah, we are. I think it's because it's end of generation, isn't it?
Yeah, we're a transitional year where there might not be quite as much being shown this year in some respects. Microsoft have their usual 2-hour world exclusive. Talking of which, actually, I will be streaming the Microsoft conference as well. There'll be a link on the Team Vivi website where you can watch the conferences, and we'll have those linked on the website. Also, I'll be streaming it live as well, and having live feedback, reflection, and discussion as I watch the conference, and giving you my feedback, moaning about it, stuff like that. So certainly looking forward to E3 conference in terms of Microsoft in particular, and the others just have to wait and see. Racing game wise, it's not a terribly exciting show. There's not much there to see. I think a lot of it we've already seen, so it's just upgraded versions of those. Non-racing wise, personally, I'm looking forward to the new Doom from Bethesda, and of course to Cyberpunk 2077, which I think both look absolutely stunning as games that come from other genres that I would enjoy. And other than that, we just have to wait and see, really. It's always an exciting time. Microsoft, though, if there's any company that needs to pull its finger out, it's Microsoft. They need to impress. They've bored me recently with some of the titles they've got coming out. It's, like you say, new Halo, new Gears of War, new Forza every year. It's like new Gears of War. It's like old Gears of War, but more cartoony looking graphics.
Yeah, well, apparently they've got 14 first-party titles this year, so the most ever. So it ties in beautifully with the absence of Sony, isn't it? So hopefully Xbox will knock it out of the park this year.
I'd like to see something unique and exciting and new from them. I'd like to see something that's going to make me say, hey, that's really cool. I'd like to see new brands. I really do feel that it's not just the fact they've got these brands, it's the fact they've used them too much.
Agreed.
Opinion.
Yeah.
We've got Forza every year now. And it's like, I'd like a year where we have Project Gotham Racing.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? And then another year. So essentially, you only get a Forza game every 4 years. A Forza Motorsport game. You only get a Forza Horizon game every 4 years. An
awful lot of pressure on these development teams, isn't there, to churn out a new game every 2 years, particularly the Horizon series. It's a massive undertaking, isn't it?
It is.
They somehow managed to do it, but I don't know. I can imagine them being under such pressure, and wow. I mean, I'd like to see them take maybe a year extra off, and perhaps maybe the next Forza could be on the next gen console. And
I mean, let's say a 3-year cycle would be better for a new game release.
Makes it more special, doesn't it?
Yes.
As technology advances more, and in that time, you really get a product that's representative.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Activision are the worst. I mean, with Call of Duty, they just they rinsed Call of Duty, utterly rinsed it, and then when they released the new one, they sort of stopped supporting the old one online. I played Call of Duty World of War on the console, never ending, and then basically it was just down to the fact that they stopped supporting it online. So then cheats came in and hacked it to bits, and you'd go into a map and there'd be a guy flying around in the air.
There's always one, isn't there?
There's always one flying around, and it's like, oh well, you're dead. He sits in the spawn behind you because he can teleport somehow, and and then he's like, I win, I shot everybody, I win. And it's like, oh, no, well, you haven't won nothing, mate. You're not even playing the game. And then you stop playing it. And for me, I stopped playing Call of Duty after that because not after that. I played the next couple, but it went from being a FPS shooting game to being a perks-driven game. And those were the best perks, or those who got the skills, kill streaks would... I remember playing Call of Duty Black Ops and getting killed. I went into one game. Nobody shot me in the entire game, but I got killed like 15 times by a remote control car. And I'm like, do you know what? I just want to shoot people. This remote control car thing is stupid. And sometimes remote control cars were quite difficult to shoot. And I just didn't. I thought, this is not what I want to play. I want to play a proper shooting game. It's stupid the way these cars... The problem with a game like that, in an environment like that, is you spawn in different parts of the level. So people were spawning behind you when the spawn moves, and remote control cars were coming from a different direction. It's not like it would be in real life, where the bad guys are on one side of the battlefield and the good guys are on the other or something. There's just this nature to it, and it just didn't work for me. So it kind of put me off. As a big fan of the FPS genre, it put me off. So I stopped playing those games. But yeah, wait and see what we've got elsewhere. Very exciting stuff coming, I think, on the show floor this year. I think there could be a good show all round. I just think for the racing genre, it depends. Thrustmaster revealing a couple of bits and pieces, but I think it's mainly aircraft joysticks. They've revealed a new hub recently for their wheels, but we haven't seen any of that from Thrustmaster, so we'll have to find out what's going on there. And that's about it really for now, Kevin. I think we've covered just about everything for E3 this year, and I think that's it for now, viewers, in terms of this podcast. So do let us know in the comments what you think of the various racing games that are coming out, what perhaps your reflection on what we've said today, what you're most looking forward to. And do tune in as well to the Xbox conference. I'll be online on Sunday running a live stream, so do jump on that, say hello and give me your live thoughts. But that's it from me and from Kevin for now, and there'll be more from us very soon.